Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that Service built. By Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk. By Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. And also by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Welcome to On the Beat in Westchester. We are joined by John Bailey. John Bailey is the publisher and editor of White Plains CitizeNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, and the host of White Plains Weekend. People to be heard on a variety of cable stations and systems around Westchester, yes. Easy to access. John Bailey, welcome back to Westchester Talk Radio. As the summer heat intensifies, the issues and the things we talk about intensify too. And of course, we got to begin with the story that never seems to end for 2.5 years now, COVID. And what direction are we heading in as we approach late summer here in August?
Well, it's really, as County Executive George Latimer said yesterday on his COVID briefing, it's in a holding pattern, essentially, he says, which is the farthest he's gone in a long time, saying it's going to be with us. And I think it's a good sign that he's finally coming around to, saying that this is a serious problem, yet still there's not a lot of urgency for protection of ourselves. He's not advocating that. And
should we be advocating for more people to get vaccinated? Because we have a good number, and yet I know a number of people who have not been vaccinated. They say they will not be vaccinated, and yet some things do change along the way.
Well, the problem is, if you know that it's going to help you stop getting sick from something that is passed by somebody who doesn't know they are carrying the germ, and you also know that we're getting reinfected at an alarming 6% of people getting infected, and 10,000 of them got infected in July, 10,298. That's a lot of people in a month, 2,000 a week. And that's what we averaged last week. And to my way of thinking, you got to be aware that there are people out there who don't know they're carrying it, who are going to get sick again. And you've also got the hospitalizations going up. We are not getting an accurate hospitalization count, and we are not getting a good demographic count on hospitalizations. Who's getting it? How long they're sick in the hospital? And quite frankly, John, the biggest hospitals in Westchester County are getting very close to capacity in their ICUs.
That's pretty interesting, especially now that we have monkeypox on top of all this that we have to deal with now, too. Does this seem to be a botched job by the federal government, who had a stockpile of monkeypox vaccines? Apparently, a lot of them expired. They were never replaced. We have a minimal number now, it seems, instead. And we do have the LGBTQ community complaining that you overlooked us here, federal government. And why did you do that when you knew this might be a problem?
Well, that's second guessing is always great. The newspapers do this all the time, and the media outlets all the time, but they're not really following the story. They just say, remember, it was pointed out to me by a person who is a follower of the COVID situation and the monkeypox situation, that last June, a month ago, they said the vaccines were on the way, and they're coming. And what happened? It's 5 weeks later, and we have a shortage of vaccines on monkeypox. They didn't get it done. They couldn't do the logistics. This is very symptomatic of the Biden administration. They have a lot of persons that cannot execute in a timely manner.
That costs society and that costs all of us when that happens. Let's move over to the elections now, August 23rd, our next primary in the state of New York, of course, due to the Hochul mandering that was thrown out by the courts, and then the courts.
Hochul mandering. No way, you can't pin that on Governor Hochul.
Yeah,
it's not Hochul mandering, Jeremy.
It's been called Hochul mandering. The gerrymandering by
Hochul
has been called Hochul mandering, which
they can't pin that on the governor because this was created by the legislature.
Well, it got kicked out by the courts and handed to the special master. So now let's start with state senator.
And so, Hochul cannot be blamed for that. She may have gone along with it, but the Democratic Party created it.
Right. They all are part of one as the same party. But let's go to the 34th State Senatorial District covering the North Bronx and southern Westchester, parts of New Rochelle, part of the town of Pelham, where Alessandra Biaggi is giving up that seat to run for Congress. We'll get to her congressional run in just a moment. But in the 34th, she is going to be replaced on the Democratic side by running in the primary. We have Bronx Assemblywoman Natalie Fernandez. We have John Perez, a U.S. Army veteran who I believe has run for several other posts in the district in the past, and by Christian Amato, one-time Biaggi staffer who is promoting himself as the real progressive in this race. And yet I believe had a falling out with Biaggi a few years back and wound up not working for her any longer. Does the fact that Amato worked for Biaggi at one point help him in this race?
I do not really think so. I mean, we don't know this guy. We don't
seem to know any of them actually. Candidates very well.
They don't seem to want us to know them. It's fascinating, John. I mean, I interviewed Gashi, who was very eager to be interviewed, gave him 30 minutes, and neither Parker nor Bowman even said or noticed me when I invited them or got back to me. That's stupid because they're not known in White Plains. Parker maybe a little, but I mean, she has signs all over Larchmont thinking Larchmont's going to carry her through. And this may be true because she's better known. But as far as those other districts, the voters don't know that.
Right. You're talking about the 16th CD now, which covers.
But the race you're talking about, same thing.
Westchester and the northern Bronx as well. The incumbent, Jamal Bowman, being challenged in the Democratic primary by Catherine Parker, of course, who's well known in the state assembly in the area, and also by Vedat Gashi. Vedat Gashi is a Westchester County board member who is running in a district for Congress where he does not live. He lives he represents northern Westchester, the Yorktown Somers area. Yeah. Who do you think has the largest leg up right now with the primary just a couple of weeks away?
The largest leg up in the 16th. Well, I'd have to say you're looking at Gashi. He's campaigned more than the others, and Bowman does not come to White Plains. He declines my interview, and that was crazy. He does it in 30 minutes. He gets he has it aired twice.
And I see that more and more with political candidates around this area who are advised by people who steer them away from making media appearances. I think the best thing for a candidate to do is to be out there as much as and as best as possible. Let's move over now to the 17th Congressional District, covering part of central Westchester, parts of central Westchester, like Portchester, part of White Plains, the Ossining area, and across to Rockland County and up the river to parts of Putnam and Dutchess County, too, all part of this redistricting. Sean Patrick Maloney, who represents the 18th district, a bit further up in the Hudson Valley in northern Westchester and beyond right now, has moved down to run in the 17th. Of course, Mondaire Jones got out of that and went down to the Greenwich Village. And South Brooklyn, the central Brooklyn district, kind of the Brooklyn Bridge Park Slope area, the 12th, the 10th district, and still all a mess with all of that. So Maloney is running against the aforementioned Alessandra Biaggi on the Democratic side. Mike Lawler, Rockland Assemblyman, is running. He seems to have the lead on the Republican side in the primary there. But Maloney against Biaggi. Biaggi seems to be making strides as the progressive against the more, I guess, I hate to use the term centrist. He's not. A little more left of center, Sean Patrick Maloney, who, by the way, controls the Democratic Party congressional purse strings for those who are campaigning. Does Biaggi have a shot here?
No.
I agree.
Not known. And where Sean Patrick Maloney has great name recognition. And the district is really not as Latino as Biaggi's old district was.
Now, Biaggi's an Italian-American, of course, from the Biaggi political family, from the family of the late Mario Biaggi.
Yes, but he was well known in that district. So the Biaggi name is not well known in this newly created district. And so I don't think she can win. I really don't.
Remember, she got bounced into a quandary because her first desire and stated intention was to run for Congress in what was supposed to be the 3rd district in a redrawn area that included the Sound Shore, parts of the Bronx and Queens, parts of Nassau and Suffolk, where the area that Tom Suozzi has vacated to run for his ill-fated run for governor. And then when the special master stepped in, Biaggi got, I think, just kind of left out there in the blue, and she had to pick somewhere to go and to run.
She got lopped off. That's what happened.
She got bumped off, politically bumped off, basically is what happened to Alessandra Biaggi. Yes. Now, Mondaire Jones won't be in the 17th anymore. He's running down in the 10th, down in Greenwich Village and the Brooklyn Bridge and Dumbo area of Brooklyn and Park Slope, etc. Bill de Blasio was running in that race, the former mayor of New York City. He has stepped out. The number of candidates, I think there were about 22,000 running at one point. That's contracted a bit. Does Mondaire Jones have a pretty good opportunity here in the 10th district, also considering the fact that he is part of the LGBTQ community, which in our tri-state area is centered down in Greenwich Village, which is part of this district?
I think he's going to win.
I do too.
I think that if he can, if he has a large Jewish population in it, but I think that they like his liberal stances. And
also, he has his hat to hang
dynamic.
On. He's got a hat to hang on to a number of accomplishments during his 2 years in the district that once was repped by the legendary Nita Lowy. She retired a couple of years ago. Mondaire Jones won that election and has gotten the job done. So if you can go from one district to another and say, I did the job here, I'm an experienced congressman where pretty much everybody else here who's running is not. Why would you not vote for me if I can bring the bacon?
And New York City needs representation in the House. And I mean, the whole problem that Nita Lowy, as a long time congressperson, was she was from a very white community. She didn't have to pay attention to the problems in the county. She just funneled money into the district for various causes. And she showed up. She practiced the George Latimer style of retail politics, where he appears to be always on the job and out there. He was like a floating pop-up candidate all the time.
I remember the first time I met Nita when she ran for Congress the first time at the old WFAS in White Plains, WFAS AM 1230 in White Plains, when she came in for an interview and I think to record some commercials at that time too in 1988. And just the job she did for more than 30 years. Like you said, a very hands-on, out there all the time congressional person. Now, you talk about Manhattan needing congressional representation. They have Jerry Nadler. They have Carolyn Maloney in two separate districts. But right now that's been rolled and gerrymandered into one district, the 12th CD, taking in the Maloney and Nadler districts into one. They had a very controversial debate about 10 days ago, joined by a third candidate, Surai Patel, who's an attorney who worked in the Obama White House. Patel given high marks for his performance in that debate, where Nadler basically would not support Joe Biden yet if Joe Biden says he's going to run for re-election, and Carolyn Maloney saying he's not going to run for re-election, and then re-upped it in a talk with the New York Post a day later, and a couple of days after that came out and apologized and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, for saying that. I hope you run again, and if you do, I will support you." Now, the polls show Nadler have a 9-point lead at the moment. Patel's polls say, "I'm doing better than that, and I'm going to win." This is a real free-for-all, and maybe this is the kind of free-for-all and political fray we need nowadays.
Well, here you've got two hacks of the age, people who have been in Congress for years.
As Patel said, the politics of 30 years ago is not the politics we need today.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't. The nation is being run by old men. They really
are. What's wrong with that if they are
past?
What's wrong with that if they are physically up to it? If they are not, that's one thing, and that can happen at any age. But if they're physically up to it, what's the difference if they're 38, 52, 73, or 94?
The difference is the mindset. The mindset is wired in the past. Many of them talk a good game about respect for women and equality, but when a vote comes right down to it, they cave. They go with the past. They don't discipline their congressional members. They don't create codes of ethics that they all want to live by because, hey, I might break the rule and I don't want to be thrown out. It's self-preservation, and that is a big problem with Congress today.
You bring that up as a pretty good point with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act and how Bernie Sanders wanted more in there than specific monies for specific programs and projects. And he got up there and said that in the Congress, and somebody got caught in a hot mic pretty much saying in so many words, "Come on, Bernie, like, let it go." And you had congressional people saying, "Yeah, we agree with Bernie, but in order to maybe make that happen, the bill may not pass." And so we just wanted to make sure we got something passed.
Yeah. And yes, in fact, I was reading just today how Senator, the other senator whose name escapes me at the moment, the one from Arizona, the woman from Arizona.
Kirsten Sinema.
Thank you. Mr. Names, Marino, remembers them all the time. And I, being of an advanced age, forget them. But I got a lot of names on the mind. So at any rate, what happened was the financial lobby, when they were facing heavy taxes on their gains, talked to her, and then she turned it around. And so we're going to let the crooks from Wall Street still make big time money.
Right. I mean, to me, that was the most disappointing aspect of all of this, that capital gains goes out the window again. You can keep it. It's okay. And we've talked for 30 years about changing this, and nobody ever changes anything. And we wonder why people look at our government and other peoples around the world will look at our governments and say, "You let the rich walk all the time."
Yeah.
And it's not about taking your money away.
Money talks, nobody walks.
I had a tax
Edison,
person
a men's
say to me,
clothier, Union, New Jersey. Money talks, nobody walks.
Money talks, nobody walks everywhere, it seems. I spoke to a tax person about this, and that person said, "You don't understand how it works, that capital gains, a lot of people look at that as a fee, and why should a fee be taxed?" To which I say, if a bank lends money to somebody and they make interest on that money and they got to be taxed on that interest, well, what's the difference here on the capital gains not being? That's a fee? No, You're making money.
Gain is a gain is a gain.
Carried
It should be
interest, and
taxed.
it's got to be taxed.
Please.
It's amazing how that industry comes up with different scenarios to protect themselves and just to keep the same old, same old.
Look,
All right, so the race for governor. Lee Zeldin.
Looking at the baseball standings tell you more about who's good and who's not than the Dow Jones average.
Right.
Dow Jones averages are one of the most over-reported, over-analyzed, nonsensical and commentaries you get every day. I mean,
right. The market reacts to things that you would think they would not react in certain ways too. For example, we could get a jobs report today that says unemployment is 8.9%. It was just 3.5. And yet there are certain factors that the market sees. Well, this is good. That's good. That's good. And the market goes up 1,000 points. Like, hey, wait a second.
Investors were scared.
Hundreds of thousands just lost their jobs, and the market still goes up. None of that makes sense.
Of course, because that shows you when employees lose their jobs because the industries are cutting staff to keep up the profit margins and raise their prices.
Right.
I mean, that's okay with Wall Street.
Right, it is. How about the race for governor, John? Lee Zeldin, Kathy Hochul. Now, new Siena poll shows Hochul ahead by 14. Our good friend Steve Greenberg, who is the head of that poll, says that, 14's a pretty steep number to make up, but there are signs that Zeldin has a chance and maybe a decent chance to catch and surpass by Hochul. I say 14 points is a lot to make up, and Lee Zeldin better come up with a rabbit out of his hat if he intends to win.
I tell you how he wins. He wins by saying Hochul is destroying us on controlling COVID. It doesn't even have to be true, but he can say that and people will go along with that.
What about on crime, for example?
Hochul is corrupt. Another thing. And Hochul is not dealing with inflation. And that is one area that she has really dropped the ball on, because with this huge electrical increase in consumption, everybody in Westchester is getting killed. People in the Hamptons are getting killed. I mean, it is massive, a massive increase in the supply that Con Ed is delivering us. Now, one thing Con Ed did do is they kept the green rate where it was. They didn't raise it the last month. And I put a call into them, hey, how can you do this? You said you were going to have a variable rate, and they were going to get back to me explaining this. I don't get it myself, because we were told it was going to go up at the variable rate. So maybe Con Ed bit the bullet for the consumer, which would be an absolute policy change on the part of that company. But at any rate, that's what they did. So they should be commended for not hitting Westchester with the increased kilowatt hour rate, or as I like to call it, the killer watt.
The killer watt. We're going to get to more about Con Ed in just a moment. John Bailey here, Westchester Talk Radio on Beat In Westchester. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative. And John Bailey, of course, is the publisher editor of WPCNR.com, White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, host of White Plains Week, and people to be heard on a variety of cable systems around Westchester. John Bailey, when it comes to criminal justice and bail laws reform and pay to play around New York State, has Kathy Hochul done too much paying to playing, and has she not done enough with criminal justice reform? As you alluded to, these are things that Lee Zeldin can harp upon in his campaign for governor.
Listen, I mean, just remember what that riot out in Los Angeles did for the candidacy of George
Gascon.
That's right. And crime is a big issue now in New York, but Zeldin has to get his message together. The election is 3 months away, right? August, September, October, November. 3 months. This guy is behind the curve.
I thought by now we'd see a TV ad of Lee Zeldin being attacked by that Army veteran in upstate New York a few weeks back. I thought that for him was a perfect campaign ad to show that in this state of New York, we're not doing enough for those who maybe need to be behind bars, or maybe in the case of the guy who attacked him, getting the kinds of mental health services that city of New York and the tri-state area and all around the state of New York, we just haven't been able to provide for decades for whatever the reason. And now this situation is out of hand.
Well, it's out of hand in New York City. I mean, people cannot make ends meet, so crime is up. Burglaries, muggings, people need money, so they have to steal it. Crime always goes up when times are really bad. And on top of that, you've got the police afraid to really exercise extreme force. And the criminals know that they're not going to be shot in cold blood on the streets anymore. But the guns are out of control. And thanks to our wonderful Supremos down in Washington, the gun law in New York State, as far as concealed carry, has been changed. That is an important thing for Ms. Hochul to hit Zeldin on gun control.
Does Kathy Hochul need to call a special session of the state legislature to deal with reform of bail reform laws just the way she did about guns? Lee Zeldin says she should, and Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, who takes the brunt of most of this, says she and Carl Hastie and State Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins of Yonkers, the Senate Majority Leader, they all need to get together to do this. And they've just basically said, in so many words, go away, Eric.
Well, if they don't, they're vulnerable on the crime issue. And the two issues I have a problem with Governor Hochul on is inflation, because she should have done something when they announced this electrical outrage that all the ESCOs raised their prices so high that sustainable Westchester could not get a decent rate to continue this great Westchester Power Consortium buy, which has saved a lot of people a lot of money and really has led to a lot of solar energy, green energy, around the county the last 6 years. She had to come down hard on that problem. She didn't. So we are all suffering those higher rates. And she's vulnerable at that. If you don't do something, it's an attack point.
Con Edison, are you surprised, or maybe I should pose this question this way? How would you rate the way they have handled the first big heat wave we've had around this area a few weeks back, and the current heat wave we are experiencing right now? Are you surprised that maybe we don't have more power outages? Con Ed getting the job done? Do you have confidence?
We haven't had any.
No,
we have not had any. This is a terrific job by them keeping the power going. And I've had very few brownouts, where it sort of gets a little. So you have to give them high. That's the problem. When Con Ed does a bad job, people scream at them. When they do a good job, they don't praise. I mean, when the police make a big arrest or a DA makes a big case, she or they are extolled to the max. There are huge press conferences there, but Con Ed doesn't get recognized for doing a good job. Now,
so we then have confidence in Con Ed that they'll be able to handle any kind of storm that comes our way, kind of like the storm we had Ida a year ago, or some kind of nor'easter that we
haven't had one yet. We
haven't had one yet. But based upon their performance so far, does this give us more confidence about what they can do?
Well, they're certainly generating enough electricity to put the old Indian Point shibboleth to rest. When that was going to go down, the green energy people were saying, we really need. Well, I forget what they were saying. They said, It's not going to hurt. And the power people said, oh my gosh, when that goes down, we need to build more power plants. I remember that. There was a big controversy. And what happens? Plant closes and everything's fine. This is the most demand I think we have ever had in a summer for electricity ever.
Is the bottom line to all of this?
We're handling it.
Is the bottom line to all of this maybe that Con Ed is under a lot of pressure from the governor's office and from Albany and from the previous governor too, Andrew Cuomo, to get the job done? And this shows what Con Ed can do when they focus on getting the job done, as opposed to what we've seen in previous summers with heat waves and in previous autumns with nor'easters and worse that have ripped through this area.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how Con Ed is doing it, but in all fairness, Mother Nature has cooperated. We haven't got the Sakatimi storms that the Middle West has had, and the floods that the Middle West has had, and the heat the Middle West has had. But we are getting the heat now, and for a month and a half, Con Ed has handled the flow. I was worried about the kilowatt hour price going up, but it did not in the first month when Con Ed was allowed to do that.
Right. I was worried about blackouts and brownouts. And Glenn Fry once saying the heat is on, no doubt about that. And let's hope we don't get any more heat waves like this summer. I have a feeling we just might. Tarrytown Board of Trustees tries to decide where a potential future cannabis shop might be located within Tarrytown, which begs the question. Now, I'm not one for legalizing marijuana. Drugs are drugs. I have two cousins who passed away from drugs. They began with marijuana. And
of course, it's the gateway drug, no matter what anybody says.
However, the laws here have changed, and we have to abide by the law. So why does it seem that New York State seems to be slow walking, implementing the dispensing of marijuana dispensaries around the state, looking like more like maybe next spring we'll have places we can go to around Westchester and around New York State where we can go buy legal pot?
It's been almost a year since Hochul created the Marijuana Commission. I forget what it's called, Cannabis Regulatory Agency or something.
Or something.
They were going to develop the ground rules. Well, we haven't seen them. We haven't even seen a draft of them, which was due last January. That is a big issue that Zeldin, who's probably not even aware of it. I mean, he seems very out of touch with the whole situation in New York State because he comes from the anything goes counties, Nassau and Suffolk, which are clicking along at 500 and 600 COVID infections a week. And no, more than that, 1,000 a week between the two of those counties. I mean, that's just a disgrace. It's so bad out there that they have set up mobile testing units out there to get more tests in. They're doing about 3,300 to 4,000 tests a day out there, and they're infecting at 10, 11, 12%. That's outrageous. And that's what's causing the huge spread in New York City. People are going in and giving it to the residents of the city in Queens.
Just a few days ago, we had a young man from Yonkers who was hit by a vehicle by an alleged drunk driver on McLean Avenue in Yonkers. He attended Stepinac High School in White Plains, and the alleged drunk driver is a Yonkers City employee. Do we need to toughen our drunk driving laws even further, especially in the light of now more and more people, and this is true, drive around smoking pot and become under the influence from marijuana while they drive, and you got people out there under the alcohol influence? Should we go down from a 0.8 to maybe a 0.4?
Well, what is the marijuana point? Okay.
There is no marijuana point, but that's not the point here. We're talking about alcohol and that 0.8 limit for drunk driving in New York State. We've heard some people say maybe it should be cut in half. We hear about incidents like this. Maybe it should be cut to a 0.4 or a 0.2. If it's a 0.2, maybe you could take a sip or two of something and then wait an hour to take a sip or two
drinking
again.
while driving. How about no drinking while driving? Make it a draconian law and say,
what would the restaurant
drink.
industry say at that point? What would the restaurant industry say at that point?
One drink a person. That's what you do if you want to stop drunk driving. That's what you do. But in America, we don't like to restrict our freedoms. We don't want to restrict our freedoms or our freedom to be irresponsible and kill innocent people crossing the street because you're too shot to see them. I remember driving drunk once.
Do we need as a country to take the attitude a bit more of I am my brother's keeper?
Well, God, that would be nice. Isn't that somewhat like a Christian influence? Where are the Christians when you need them? Where are the Christians? Where are the Christians when you need them to be Christian? Okay, but I digress. How about a situation whereby you really do say you can't drink while driving, and you can't drive if you are caught drinking? It doesn't have to be a breath test. The officer leans in the car. It happened to me in Bronxville, and I had had 2 beers, but apparently they weren't on my breath, so it was fine on my breath. But I mean, you got to be responsible. I remember once, and this is what happens to you have a lot of drinks. I had 6 screwdrivers at the home of an anchorman at WMAL TV, who used to invite people back to after the 11 o'clock news on a Friday night to his house, and we'd all have drinks. So we drink till 5 in the morning. I get in the car. I've had 6 drinks. I get on the Beltway to go back to my apartment. And I'm going from the far left lane of the Beltway to the far right lane of the Beltway. I had no idea of how to control the car. And since God had other plans for me, I did not crash the car and die. But I will never forget that. And people should warn kids and adults that once you go beyond drink 2, you don't have the capacity to drive responsibly. And
by the way, WMAL, that's in Baltimore?
That used to be, that was the call letters of Channel 7 in Washington when I worked there. And
yeah, I knew it was Washington or Baltimore.
Now. It's changed its call letters now. But that was the station that got around union rules by having an intern program.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Very big saving.
People wonder why we need unions in this business sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you got to have unions. Otherwise, you're at the disadvantage to the employer.
We talked about being our brother's keeper, being a Christian philosophy and way of life. Franciscan Friar gets 90 days in jail for stepping into an abortion clinic in White Plains and basically hosting a sit-in for a couple of hours. Is this okay to throw him in jail for 90 days, or should he have been maybe given a warning about don't do it again? You may disagree, but it's the law here.
It sends a message. You can't go onto the premises and harass people attempting to use the services of that. How about I'm an anti-drug person, okay? How about if I go in and try and talk people not buy cannabis because it's bad for you? Same thing. I think that was a very brave decision by the White Plains court to just do it. And now you get the message, at least in White Plains, at least, that if you disrupt the business, you're going to go to jail. You're not going to do that because most people who do civil disobedience like that, thinking it won't be punished because, oh, nobody will do that. Well, they need to realize that in White Plains, we protect the rights of businesses, we protect the rights of citizens using those businesses, and we do not say it's okay to take away other people's rights. That's what White Plains did.
Basically, it came down to violating trespassing statutes.
Exactly. It's like somebody comes onto my property and pitches a tent because they don't like the way I'm keeping my lawn. Okay, that's my lawn, right?
No doubt about that. John Bailey, here on Westchester Talk Radio, on the Beat in Westchester. I'm John Marino. John Bailey is the publisher, editor of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, and the host of White Plains Weekend, People to be Heard, which you can see on a variety of cable systems around Westchester. John Bailey, we thank you. Talk to you again real soon.
All right, where it's 90 degrees and sunny at just about 10 minutes to 11.
Yeah, I think maybe in a few weeks when we talk, let's hope it's 88 degrees at least, okay? Instead of 90.
That would be nice.
Yeah, with a humidity of like 4% instead of 94 or 104%. Here on Westchester Talk Radio, I'm John Marino on the Beat in Westchester, produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built, by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, and by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam and Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube. And yes, we are now on Apple Podcasts too.